when we get that call, my wife and my family understand that I love them, but right now we're headed to that. It's time to go to work. It's time to do the job that when I signed up for, I understood was dangerous.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Tailboard Misfits podcast. Today, we're going to be talking with Logan. Me and Logan have tried this probably 3 or 4 times, and due to technical difficulties, for one reason or another, it hasn't worked out. So we're nice and primed up and ready. Real quick, before we get started, we don't run sponsors or anything like that. The only way we can grow is really just word of mouth and sharing. So if you find value in anything that's said in this, whether it be one thing or the entire episode, just be sure to share it. Take it to the firehouse, take it to your friends. I know we've kind of been a little slow, if you will, but just know that work's been being done. As we've announced in the past, we are going to be streamed through the Firefighter Nation platform. So if you haven't already, make sure you go follow them on Instagram and Facebook. Coming up October 1st, I believe, me and my co-host Preston Lyons are going to be going live on the Firefighter Nation platform just to kind of kick off their entire relaunch. So we're pretty excited about that. And then shortly after that, we'll start being just streamed through their platform. We already have a few episodes recorded, a couple good ones. Some of the upcoming guests, you have Chief David Rhodes, the Horton brothers, Micah and Jesse Horton, Josh Burchick from Forged and Unbroken Fire. So, and then we have a couple episodes with just me and Preston just babbling. So hopefully you guys will enjoy those. So like I said, make sure you're following them. Make sure you look out for the live stream because we're going to be going live and hit the ground running from there. But anyways, let's get to it. Logan, how's it going, bro?
Good, man. Good. Third time's the charm, I think.
Yeah, third time's the charm, fourth time's the charm. We're going to work through it one way or another. I think we have all the wrinkles smoothed out and everything seems to be working so far. I don't know if it's like the shoddy, like East Texas / Arkansas Wi-Fi stuff we got going on, but either way, we're making it work.
Let's do it.
So, Logan, real quick, before we get started, I want you to just to introduce yourself. For those that don't know who you are, where you're at, the kind of background you have, current department, stuff like that, like what you're doing.
So family comes first and everything. I'm 25 years old, been married right at 3 years. I've got a 2.5-year-old son. His name's Riker. Wife's Jessica. She's truly the biggest reason for any success that I've found since we've been together. Got together at 19 there. Started in the fire service at 17, actually a bit of a junior firefighter program in a really, really small town up in west central Arkansas in the River Valley. Got to get some decent experiences there, learn what to do, learn what not to do through failure and everything of that sort. Kind of bumped around. I was a travel EMT for a while. Worked up in northwest Arkansas, southwest Arkansas. About 2.5 years ago, we landed here right around Little Rock. Been with the Crystal Fire Department here, just west of town ever since. Decent sized department. We run about 600-700 calls a year. I'm not going to get into fire numbers or anything like that, but we get to go to work. Fairly decent amount. Engine company, true truck company when it goes. Working on moving into a full-time fire service role. Not going to dig too far into that, but my background entirely up until this point has been volunteer and part-time departments.
Yeah, I think that's important though, because I started off volunteering as well, and I'm still a volunteer here in the town I live in. And I like kind of like you said, whenever I started volunteering, like I had no clue what I didn't know, but I was surrounded, like what I look back now, like I was surrounded by some really good dudes, and there's this other guy that me and him started practically at the same time on the same day. We went to our first fire together, and just seeing where his career's at now at a full-time fire department, seeing where my career's at with a full-time fire department, and looking back at some of the fires I made there, like, man, like I wish I was aware of what I didn't know back then, just to kind of further off, push where I'm at now. I couldn't imagine where I'd be.
Yeah, I wouldn't be anywhere near where I am now if it wouldn't have been for volunteer service.
Yeah, and you get to, at least for me, I understand that even a lot of full-time fire departments have, low to minimal staffing levels, and for me, fortunately, like you get to see what low staffing is like. You get to see what it's like to pull up on a structure fire with just 1 or 2 other guys with you, and you go to work for the next 10 to 15 minutes before someone can get there. And not always in my volunteer department now here in Lindale, but still you could be in that situation, easily where it's, 10 minutes before your second due or, however much longer. So you get to see and you actually get to work, I was going to point this out when you said that, like, at a lot of volunteers or small staffing companies, like you get to do a lot of stuff, right? Not only are you stretching the line and flowing, but you're also searching and you're also venting and, you're trying to do all the fireground tasks with minimal people. And you get to do a lot of stuff. At my full-time department in Longview now, like we send 20-something guys to a structure fire, and it's pretty much like you get your job and then that's it. Like everyone might go back in for some overhaul work, but you're doing your one job, which is awesome. There's something to both sides of it, though, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, there absolutely is. There's something to be said for being a specialist. If you're at a larger department, you can be a specialist, right? If you're on a truck, you can be a truck guy. If you're on an engine, you can be an engine guy. Something that I truly enjoy about, small towns, even if smaller full-time departments, is you might one day stretch a line because you're the first due engine. Next day, you're the second due engine. You beat the truck in, or you don't operate a truck company. Your engines operate more of a squad company. Your second due engine, you're doing search, you're throwing ladders, you're venting the roof, you're doing OV duties, backside duties.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a lot more enjoyable to some people. Is it changes it up a little bit, and it makes you be good at everything, which is a lot harder to do than specializing.
Yeah, and as I've referenced my department because it's the only thing that I can relate to at this point. But we do throw several guys at a structure fire, and I would say our truck culture is pretty good. But we do rotate for the most part. Like I work at a triple company house, and I'll do 2 shifts on the engine, 2 shifts on the truck, and then we run an ambulance, so I'll do 2 shifts on the ambulance, just kind of rotating like that. And so you got to be proficient in everything, and I see the value in both things. Like just riding a truck. I wish that we had something like that. I feel like we used to in the past, but I would say the only thing exclusive to our truck companies is ventilation. And saying that, like the caveat there is I know of engines going to the roof. So you got to be good at everything. And then just like you said, you have to be ready to be able to call the audible and be able to do, what you aren't assuming that you're going to do, if that makes sense. So I do love that aspect of it as well.
I had a really, really good conversation with someone the other day about this. There's a lot of it. Arkansas is not a very truck heavy area unless you're in a bigger city, right? The term truck culture seems to steer people the wrong way. Not just here, but everywhere. If you say truck culture, they're like, well, I don't have a ladder truck. I don't need a truck culture. You're that first due engine. You have a victim presenting second floor. When was the last time you threw a ladder? You're that second due engine. You've got reports of victim second floor, first due's operating a line, ground level. When was the last time you threw a ladder in VES or did, just window initiated? Took a window, sashed the window, sounded the floor. You don't have to have a truck to do truck stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Our fireground priorities, depending on arrival order, everything like that, but is putting the hose line inside, committing a search, ventilating, and overhaul. 3 of those 4 tasks are by definition truck tasks.
Yeah, I mean,
whether you have a ladder truck or not.
Yeah,
they're truck tasks.
I love that. I love that point because I've never thought of it like that. And you're right. Like, for the most part, our second due engine, they're going to search, unless we have, the reports of victims or something like that. Like our second due engine's going to search, and we don't, call for a truck company to force the door or anything like that. Like, but that's right. Like, the majority of those tasks on the fireground are truck related, and I feel like in the majority of the fire service, with the exception of some of those bigger cities, is like the engines are doing those things.
Yeah,
and go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're all right. And with that, with those decision making, those truck tasks, you have to be proficient, even if you're in a bigger city, because it's going to happen sooner or later. Whether you're in a department that runs 100 calls a year. You're in a department that runs 100,000 calls a year. You're going to be arriving first due on an engine, and someone's going to be hanging out of a window, or you're going to have reports of someone, they're right here, they're right here, they're right here. And you got to be proficient in all of this.
We had we actually did the podcast on here for it, but just to drive home that point, we had an apartment fire last year, almost a year ago. It was a little over a year ago now, and first due engine had victim presenting from the window. And we do, pre-arrival assignments. Typically our first due engine's stretching a line, second due engine's going to search, first due truck's going to vent, stuff like that. And we had to call an audible on that fire, and our first due engine, threw a ladder, and then they initiated, window initiated search. So it's just like this stuff happens, and you need to be proficient at it, and you need to be ready for that. And I know a lot of people aren't, that's probably a whole different rabbit hole, but I know a lot of people aren't very fond of the pre-arrival assignments. I am personally, but that's a different conversation for a different day.
Yeah, and even with how we operate, we have a live-in program, so we normally have people at the station, and then we're supplemented by volunteers that come in and do, staffing shifts or come from home or, anything like that. And we're normally operating by ourselves for, those 8 to 10 minutes like we talked about with 2, 3, 4 guys. So, of course, our first priority, unless we see victims presenting, is we're getting a line of the fire. Sometimes it's even with reports. If it's just reports of I think someone's inside, well, the best thing we can do for them is go put water on the fire. One of my big mentors, Manny, puts it really the best way I can think to do it is his corn harvester theory. If my kid runs into a cornfield that's getting chopped up by a harvester, what am I going to do? Run around frantically looking for my kid? Or am I going to go tell the guy driving the harvester to go shut the motor off?
Right. I've had this conversation so much with specifically one of my captains at work, and we have a really good, relationship and able to have those kinds of conversations. And, I definitely lean towards putting water on the fire, stretching the line and going to work. Because, once you put the fire out, it gets better for everyone, right? Like there's the whole saying. I think the majority of it we miss a lot because it's definitely going to be just like you just said. Everything that we're talking about is going to be dependent on staffing. It's going to be dependent on how quickly your second due is going to be there. For me and our department, and why we could probably get away with it, is we are so close. We stack on top of each other like that. Not to mention that the majority, we have 8 stations, and 6 of those have ambulances out on them, with them. And so the majority of and mostly where we see our fire duty at is all definitely staffed pretty good. So we'll take my district, for example. We probably have the most or second most fires in our city. I'm a triple company house. So when we arrive on scene, we have the ability for the engine to go stretch a line, the truck to go to the roof of the vent, and the medic go search. So we can get away with bypassing fire attack because it's going to be picked up within seconds, theoretically. We just stack on top of each other. So having that conversation at my department is completely different than having that conversation at your department. And when you see, I see arguments about it all the time on Facebook. It's just like context is everything. And that just might be my opinion, but I feel like context is everything. If you're operating first due with, 8-10 minutes before your second due arrives there, water on the fire is the move. But if you are fortunate, like me, like I just said, and your second due is seconds behind you, search might be the move on that one. I think Chief Rhodes said it in maybe his FDIC speech, or maybe it was at firemanship. I can't remember. But he said search isn't always, the first assigned task, but sometimes it is. So I think that probably sums it up the best for everyone.
Yeah, it really does. And it's like you said, it's truly dependent on staffing, response times, everything of that nature. But our first priority, regardless of what the actual assignment should be what we think at that time is best for persons that may be in that house, their property, everything of that nature.
Yeah, I agree. So I kind of want to move into this. Obviously, you're a passionate fireman. I've met you now in person, which was cool, and I've been knowing you for a good bit now. And if there's one thing I can say about you, you're really passionate for the job, and I think that shows through your training company, through what I see you post on Facebook, the conversations I've heard you had on a few podcasts. Like, you're a very passionate fireman, and I'm just curious. We'll kind of start here. Were you passionate from the get-go? Is this something that you always wanted to do? Or did an event lead to it, or what?
So it's kind of a combination of both, really, John. So, getting into it, I was passionate about it because I did the whole, this is cool. I get to, we get to take the big trucks. We get to go fight fire. For about the first 2.5 years, that's really all I, knew about it was, we go inside, we put water on the fire. If there's someone inside, we go look for them. Just the basics, which is super important. But I've been seeing a lot of guys, because I was on social media then too, and was watching and saw a lot of guys that were super into it, super diving off in depth and everything. And I had that mentality of, oh, well, stuff like that's not going to happen here. We run 200 calls a year, 10 or 12 structure fires a year. There were 2 events that kind of led up to me just taking a step back and saying, oh, this shit's real. We had a attic fire. Captain had an air pack failure. We were in the back corner of the house. Captain had an air pack failure. Mask stuck to his face, no airflow. Mayday situation. Had to get him out of the house. We kind of regrouped after that fire, and everybody was kind of silent for a minute. So that kind of sparked one half of it, and then the other half of it, my wife, like I said, is super understanding, with being gone all the time, family balance, everything like that. And it's because that she's experienced loss from fire. Both of her grandparents perished in 2019 in a residential fire. Both were found within 6 feet of a back door. I'm not going to dive too far off into what all went down that night, but some things didn't happen that really should have happened. And that really sparked, per se, diving down the rabbit hole, and I've been down the rabbit hole ever since. So here we are, almost 4 or 5 years later, and still digging, diving down headfirst and everything. Really started going out. About a year later, I started going out and going to conferences, trying to meet people, sit down, sit in the corner, be a fly on the wall, listen to lectures, do hot trainings, everything like that. Thankfully, whenever we moved here to the Little Rock area, I got to take that knowledge and bridge that gap with experience. Because before that, we didn't have heavy duty, we didn't have heavy fire duty or anything like that other places. I got to come here, found a really good department that pushes people to be better, that sets expectations, and makes it a place that you want to be because you get to do work. They let you be fireman with a leash. You have a leash, but they let you be fireman. And they make training accessible, and they make it fun, and they make it purposeful. Which I think is one of the most important things we can do, is those 3 things for training. And being able to bridge that gap between all of that training and all of that knowledge I got to go gather, and now pairing it with all of this experience that thankfully, we're kind of in a place to get, really has helped shape to where I am today. And, I'm still young, I'm 25, but it's kind of the saying. I had a good conversation yesterday with some guys from East Arkansas. Is this your 10th year as a rookie, or is this your 10th year as a fireman? And you can be a 10-year firefighter, wear the pager, wear the T-shirt, show up to work, clock in, ride a seat, or you can be a 10-year fireman that understands the job, understands why we're here, why the fire service was founded all those centuries ago, and the mission still serves today. How we serve it's a little bit different. Back in the 40s and 50s, we didn't go pick mama up off the floor. We didn't do stuff like that. We're still serving the mission today. That's an important way. People see it different ways. Just because you're passionate doesn't mean just because you don't go out to conferences or outside training doesn't mean you're not a fireman, a passionate fireman that truly cares about the citizens in his district and who he's serving. So,
I just want to hit on that point too, is some of the best firemen I know and work with, they don't go to conferences and classes. And for each one of them has a solid reason. It's not that they don't want to, but we were getting ready to go to firemanship, and one of my drivers told me, like, make sure you pay attention. I'm like, okay. And he's like, he couldn't go. And he was like, I rely on you guys to bring this stuff back. And he's aware of that and knows it. So I definitely wouldn't engage it like that. But I love having the passion conversation with people because it tends to be in 2 categories. Either an event sparked just their deep dive into the fire service and what we do for a living. And then, or it's they crossed paths with someone. And I love hearing about the events and everything, but I'm always interested in crossing paths with people because it's just like, that is almost the epitome of what I believe and perceive to be a part of what the fire service is, right? If I can cross paths with someone and they say, wow, that guy, he's really into the job. What does he do? And they look at the things that I do and take inventory of it. And now they try to emulate that. Like, at the end of the day, You just want to leave it better than you found it. And I think that's super important is being able to just, pass on information, pass on knowledge, and then if anything, like instill just a little bit of the passion that someone else, had. Because for me, it wasn't an event for me. I very much reside with, like, I didn't know what I didn't know at the beginning. And as I progressed through my career and finally landed at the department I'm at now, straight up during orientation, one of the captains set us down and has given us his new guy talk. And he mentions all these things. And I'm like, I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that. I've never heard of that. And it's just like, okay, now I'm aware of what I don't know. And now it's time to get serious and take a deep dive in. And so from there sparked interest. And from there started going to classes. And then from there meeting people and just learning about more and more and more about to lead me to where I'm at now, So I'm always curious to hear that part of it, especially when someone is very passionate about it.
Man, and getting to do, getting to go to places that I've been blessed to go, I've gotten to have some really solid conversations that have truly helped guide where we're headed and where I'm at now. Something else, a couple of years ago, I had a conversation with Rob Ramirez after one of his lectures, and one of the key points is I can't directly affect what you do for the people in your district. You just can't. I can't make you go to the gym. I can't make you get up and stretch lines at the start of your shift. I can't make you get up and throw letters. But I can do that for someone in my district. I can do that with the crew that I'm with and the people in our district, even if you get to have those outside conversations. And you made a really good point, is some of the best firemen I know, same thing, they don't go to conferences. But what makes them a good fireman and a good person and a good brother or sister is when you come back, it's not, oh, fuck that guy. He went to a conference. He thinks he's all this stuff. Hey, man, what did you learn? Did you see something cool we can use? Can we go try something out? Some of the best guys on the job have that mentality, whether they've been here 2 weeks or 30 years. I cannot, absolutely not stand it. It drives me up a wall, and it's a hill I'll die defending with a rusty spoon, is either young guys or old heads, because I was this young guy at one point. I'll raise my hand and admit to it. We've all been that 2 or 3 year guy that thought we knew everything. Moved on from it and learned from it. And I can't stand guys like that, or 30-year guys that are like, oh, I've been doing this XYZ. I don't need to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I had gotten back from a class and try to tell this story very vaguely. And I was talking with someone that was very inquisitive and wanted to know about it, and was approached and said, hey, just be careful about what you say. Like, a lot of these guys don't like hearing about how XYZ department does things. And I'm like, honestly, like, I don't care. Like, I'm going to be respectful. I'm not shoving it down people's throats. I'm doing the thing. But if someone asks me, like, I'm going to share what I learned. And it's just like, that's not the way we need to be, man. Like, at all. It's going to drive me up a wall. And I don't, like I said, I'm going to be respectful about it. I'm not going to be disrespectful or talk crap about the people that don't want to hear it. But if someone ever approached me and said something like that because I was having a conversation with someone that wanted to know, like, I'm not sure how I would approach the situation. But I do know what you're saying, and I hear you. And there's some things that need to be, some people need to swallow their pride and just understand that the way that your department does it isn't the only way that's done. And I'm not saying that the way your department does it is wrong. I'm not saying that it's right, but I'm saying that if someone else is having success doing something a certain way, we as the fire service should have the obligation to say, hey, that's working for them. We should probably look into that and see what it's all about. And it might not work for us, but I think we still should look at it and be like, okay, they've had tremendous amount of success doing it this way. Can we adopt that model with our department? And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Like, no big deal. But instead, some people want to turn their nose up, think they know everything, think because, they've done it and gotten lucky, honestly, for the last 20 years, that's the way it needs to be done. And so that part kind of drives me nuts, but that's few and far between, but it's happened. And I know it does happen in other places.
So you talked about that we've always done it this way attitude. Being in small town service my entire career, people's ideas of success are different. My idea of success is not the fire went out and everybody went home. We just burned that house to the ground because you didn't want to go inside because there was fire out of the window. That's not success. That's an absolute failure, and it's a disgrace, right? But on the flip side of that, I've had to come to understand what you don't know, you just don't know. And that's for everybody. It was taught for so long, IRIT. It's still in some people's SOGs. You have to have 2 in, 2 out before that's established. Look at the data and tell me what's going to be safer. You don't even have to look at the data. Use common sense. Let's walk through this real quick. What's going to be safer? Having 2 guys sitting on the outside while these 2 guys are beating themselves to death trying to shuck hose to the second floor, or committing that 3rd guy and that 4th guy, that engineer, to the front door, and having 3 guys try and shuck hose upstairs and get to the fire 3, 4, 5 minutes faster. What's going to be safer for everybody on that fire ground? You don't have to establish RIT if you put the fire out and don't need it. Now, I'm not saying never to establish it, but that initial company presence on the fire ground should be all in to establish control over it, or rescue victims, whichever way we have to go with it.
I think there's been, I'm not going to tell that story. Yes, I agree 100%. And there is people that do not understand that, and they will try to use the whole 2 in, 2 out rule to handcuff people or use it for personal gain, and not realize that the only people that are going to, not benefit, the people that are going to perish to that rule are the civilians that we serve. If we're having to wait for, especially in the volunteer community, volunteer community.
2 in, 2 out would not work for us. We would be standing outside watching this house burn for 10 minutes. We're not going to do that. It doesn't work that way. It simply doesn't. Because you know what the news story is going to say? I think I talked about this previously. I think I talked about it with Danny. All it's going to take is one time. Accountability's here. The public is educated. The days of the public being blind to what our duties are supposed to be are gone. They're long gone. People are involved in their communities. People are out. They learn. Social media is here. YouTube's here. They watch videos. They see news stories. The moment that news story says, fire department sat outside this house while grandma burned to death, we're done.
The accountability from the public is coming. And, I think Cody Trestrail has a presentation where he, references a bunch of those things where it's already here. It's just, not widespread yet. There's departments being held liable for inaction, for not doing their job, right? And I don't remember if it was him specifically, but he has the videos up there where people are going up to civilians in their community and asking them, like, what do you expect out of your fire department, right? And I love the way Sean Duffy puts it in one of his classes. He says, civilians expect 2 things: save my life and save my shit, and in that order. Like, that's what they expect out of us. So waiting in the front yard, not the move.
No, and it's a sad reality because, like I said, some people, you just don't know what you don't know. We've been taught for so long by alphabet soup people that sit at desks that you have to have 2 in, 2 out before you can do anything. And there's a lot of people that still take that as the work, that's what you have to do. Just because it was said in this book, this is exactly what I have to do. A lot of people get angry with the academies, the rookie book or the rookie schools and everything like that. It's not their fault. They have to teach what they're right. The problem lies with those alphabet soup books that take, because if you look at the NFPA JPRs, we're going to dive off in the training real quick. If you look at how the NFPA writes the JPRs, it doesn't say you will crawl on all fours and grab your buddy's ankle and sweep around with an axe handle. It says you will wear the proper PPE and you will search this house that's on fire. It's not even the NFPA's fault on that part of it. It is the alphabet soup books that take this and have lawyers and insurance people write these books and say, this is the absolute safest possible way we could ever do this, when in reality it's not when we think about it. And this is how we're going to teach it. And people that don't know anything but that are going to take that as word, and if you do anything else, you're the demon.
I don't remember who exactly what it was, and I'm going to kick myself for not remembering, because it was a speech, and I want to say it was probably Chief Rhodes at FDIC. I think it was talking about infiltrating these, the NFPA, infiltrating, all these ifs, stuff like that, to be able to make, positive change for it. And I think there's really good things happening. Like, I think it's funny, all the stickers and the T-shirts, abolish the NFPA. Like, I think that's funny. But when you get like actual into it, like we are starting to see some of the people that we look up to in the fire service starting to get more involved on these boards and these panels, and I think we'll start seeing a good shift in it. And that was a great call to action, and we still need to have that, call to action is get involved. And if you're scared and you're scared for rejection, like, it's okay. Like, at the end of the day, they don't say, no, we said no to these people. Like, just don't tell anyone that you applied for it. But you are correct. You are correct in saying that, they're not necessarily handcuffing people, but in a sense, we take things too literal, right? And most of these books are, I would say, recommendations rather than the way that they need to be done. And there's 2 or 3 fire academies in my immediate area, and I know people that work at every single one of them, and they all say the same thing. 1, they don't have enough time. 2, they try their hardest to teach what they have to teach. They're, like, in that sense, they are required to teach certain things by the state. But when they can get into it and they can move past those things, like, they do try to tell them the way it actually is. Because I remember going through fire academy, and it wasn't until I made my first real fire where I start trying to get down on my hands and knees, and everyone else is like looking at me like, look at this idiot. Like, I didn't know we just walked into houses. Like, I was assuming that everyone just crawled around everywhere. So it was pretty poorly explained to me, honestly, that, like, that's not the way it was. And there was a lot of stuff like that. And so I think we do have to have some type of change, although I have nowhere to start. So hopefully someone else way smarter than me is doing those things and moving the needle. And I'll help in any way I can, obviously. But I think there's a bigger problem at hand other than just that. Like, there's a bigger undertaking that has to happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and it's really what it boils down to is raising the standard, the minimum, right? Because right now, if based on what the books are teaching, the minimum standard is the floor, in a literal sense, crawling around on the floor.
Yeah, crawling around on your hands and knees.
I'm not saying don't crawl. There's, the fire's going to tell you what to do. But you see consistently, it happened to you. It's happened to me. I was taught that way. You were taught that way. Whenever we both made our first fires, we got looked at. It was like, what are you doing? That's not how we do it in the real world. All right. And This is a blue collar job. This is a real world job. Why aren't we teaching our rookies how we do it in the real world instead of stuffing them full of fluff, snowflakes, and BS?
Mm-hmm. I will say this. I do know of a fire academy that is not teaching the all fours crawling around anymore. Like, these kids coming out there knowing what, like, the tripod position is and stuff. So like I said, I think that we're getting some of the right people in the right places to affect change. And I'm sure it's not just happening just here. You know what I mean? Like, there's other people that are teaching at other academies, and I'm sure they're teaching, the tripod position, for example. Like, I do believe that that's happening. But 10 years ago, when I went through the academy, I wasn't. I was taught hands and knees, holding on to the leg of the guy in front of us and sweeping out with tools and stuff like that. Like, stuff that I think I'd probably be fired if I did in my current department.
That's an entire rabbit hole that we could talk for probably 3 days on is the search and stuff. I know at least I could dive off in that and go way down, but we're on the topic of training, looking at small departments that don't have access to these nice training facilities, that don't have.
I do want to say something though, real quick, Logan, and it's mostly like me applauding you, but on the way home from firemanship, you were hosting a class, or you were part of a conference that was hosting a class, and I got to stop by and see. And one thing that I saw from every single one of the guys that you had out there teaching, and first of all, the entire thing, I was like more or less blown away by it, because I really didn't know a lot about the conference that you guys were teaching at or anything like that. And when I showed up, like, you guys were teaching to a lot of volunteers, some of the people that have never done some of the skills that you were teaching them that day. And I was like, golly, like, this is so needed. Like, and not saying that I've never thought of that before, but I could see just light bulb moments happening in some of the students' eyes that you guys were teaching. And then where what I'm about to say was really driven home to me was at the end, when you guys were kind of doing the hot wash at the end of the day. And a lot of these guys were like, man, now we know what we didn't know. But you were able to portray like, and this is what I was saying, like a lot of people, and I've lived this life, a lot of volunteer departments, they're not there for the t-shirt and the pager, right? Like I know that's the saying, they're there because they really do want to serve their community. But that's the culture that they were brought up in, to have the t-shirt, to wear the pager to Walmart with them so they can, have it with them at all times. But they mean really, really well. And like I said, I've lived in a department that was just like this. One thing that you guys portrayed so well, and it was specifically you, is like, it does not matter whether you're full-time or your career or volunteer, like this is the standard, this is the expectation. And if you didn't know, like now you do. And so when it comes to, we kind of were just talking about like the public's expectation of us, like the public's expectation of us doesn't change from whether you're a volunteer or a career department. It holds no weight. They don't care. The public doesn't care if you're getting paid or you're not getting paid. They still expect the same things. And so as we move into talking about training, specifically for volunteer or low manpower, low staffing levels, like if you guys want to get into it, I'm just saying, and I know Logan will talk about it, but his training company, does such a good job at portraying that message without being vindictive, without talking down to people, but it's just like a big, real reality check saying like, it doesn't matter that you're volunteer. It doesn't matter that you have 3 days on this job. The expectations from the public are the same. And sorry, like whenever you were talking about that, I didn't want to move past that without just saying that, because I was trying to drive a point home at the same time. Like you guys did do a really good job at that.
And it speaks to the guys that teach, because truly and in reality, I'm just the ugly face that signs the paper, right? I teach some stuff, but that's them. It's all a collaborative, conglomerate effort built by guys coming from all different backgrounds. And I'll tell you, all but 2 or 3 of the guys that were teaching that day had never taught together before, but you wouldn't have known it. I didn't know it. I wouldn't have known if I didn't set everything up for it. The message was the same. The mission was the same for everybody. And, guys coming from big cities all the way down to, small career departments and volunteer departments. A lot of those guys work full time and volunteer somewhere else. But the mission is the same. The fire department exists because people crave shelter. Shelter nowadays is made out of buildings built from flammable materials so they keep their kids, themselves, and their shit in. And when that's on fire or when that is threatened, that's what they expect. And that's the message that was portrayed all through that weekend and any other time we go do anything. That's why you exist. This is the level that they expect us to operate at. And that's not to say that we're, God's gift or anything, but we've put the work in silently behind the scenes to get to that level. And we want the students and the firemen that are there with us to understand that this is what the citizens want. They might not care beforehand, but when their stuff and when their house is on fire and when it's their kids trapped in there, when they're trapped in that building, this is how they want you to operate, and probably faster than this.
I think whenever you said that, just one other thing, and then I'll stop talking about this part. But it was the first time I've seen this, and I think because a lot of times it's expected, but specifically with the audience that you guys had, I think this was super important towards the end of the day. And I know you guys talked about maybe you should have done it before because it's very much a learning process for you guys, just as much as it was the students. But you guys took 2 or 3 of the instructors teaching with you, like, I want you guys to run a scenario. Because one thing that I feel like needs to be pushed to rookies, whether it be the career side or volunteer that have never done it before, is fireground pace. And so seeing how, I know James was one of them, but seeing how they operated under that scenario and seeing the pace that they had and seeing that they weren't just like slowly making their way to the window. They weren't slowly throwing the ladder. Like, no, it's time to shit and get, for lack of better words. And I thought that was super cool because a lot of classes don't do that. They don't have like, hey, this is what it should look like. Like, and I get it. Like I said, I know that a lot of times it's expected. It's at least for a lot of the classes that I've personally attended. Like, I'm surrounded by a bunch of career guys, and so it's assumed that they understand what fireground pace looks like. But to have it demonstrated to people, I thought was huge.
Well, you know what's going to make everything stick, because we can talk about pace all day long. See one, do one, teach one, right? You know what's going to, one, give you a little bit more credibility than you had before with the students that you have there, and two, really drive home the point and make it stick, is they need to see. You can talk about pace, 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 and they're like, well, what do you mean? Is it a run? Is it a jog? Well, here, just watch this. And
Yeah.
two, that shows through visual representation that you know what the hell you're doing. And I think that's important, especially with maybe people that their whole career before coming to any type of class outside training have been told, you don't run, you have to walk. You have to have two guys to throw a 24-foot ladder. You have to have two people to force a door. You have to pencil the ceiling as you come down the hallway. Just all kinds of different stuff like that. And it's a slow pace. If you show them what you mean by fireground pace or move with a purpose, it'll stick.
Yeah, I agree. 100%. So yeah, we wanted to talk a little bit about training, and I know I want you to be able to give a plug for your training company, but specifically talk about training where staffing levels are minimum, hard to get by, and I know you guys target some stuff like that. So I'll kind of let you just talk about, honestly, if you just want to talk about your company, and then we could just kind of move into it and like what your goals are with it.
Yeah, I'm really not going to try and plug it too hard. Really, the main point of everything is you hear a lot of people say, do more with less. That's not really something that you can do and still be proficient at fireground tasks with low staffing. The hard part in the middle ground with that is I've come to learn the hard way, because I used to be one that said do more with less. Search off the hose line, ducking off indoors. All that does is slow us down. If you try to do too many things at once, you're not going to complete any of them. So really what we focus on is being super proficient in the bare bones basics: stretching lines, flowing water, moving the line through the structure on the engine side, right? We throw a bunch of water application. Tank water confidence is huge. You've got departments that are still, for some reason, waiting until, like really small towns, waiting until they have a drop tank system set up before they send somebody inside.
Mm-hmm.
Well, buddy, you brought 1,500 gallons of water with you. You have a drop tank in your truck. So we work on really hard on tank water confidence, because 160 gallon a minute smoothbore with a 1,000 gallon tank is 6.5 minutes. It's a long time.
And that's flowing wide open the entire time.
That's open. That's not 6.5 minutes period. If you're flowing water for 6.5 minutes with a 7/8 and things haven't gotten better, we have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So we work really hard on tank water confidence. Well, one of the ways we'll drive that home is, chiefs will be like, it's usually the older heads that'll do it, and we're like, flow this water. Oh, hold this nozzle for 6.5 minutes until your truck runs out of water, and we'll time it. And usually after that, it kind of sets in a little bit with things like that. On the quote per se truck side of things, you got to get into the house before you can do anything, right? So if you're low staffed, you're probably going to have to force the door by yourself as the officer, as the hosman, or as the backseat guy if you're doing truck duties, depending on what you're doing. And you might have to force the door as the nozzle, depending on what we've got going on. You got to be able to throw a 24-foot ladder by yourself. It is a low staff company. That's a must at any level, whether you're running 100 calls a year or 1,000 calls a year. If you're showing up with 3 guys on an engine or 3 guys on a truck, you got to throw that 24 by yourself. So we, drill really hard on technique, because I'm a little bitty guy. I'm 150 pounds, man. Everything that I do, I have to have perfect technique, or I'm just going to get sent back flying, because I just don't have the body weight to make up for poor technique, right? Victim removal, victim drags, man, just split searching, man. Just getting comfortable, not holding each other's hands, things like that, and building from a very base level of confidence. And build it up, break it down a little, build it up, break it down a little. And then, of course, see one, do one, teach one, running through that. If you're training in a small town where you don't have a training facility, you don't have to have some big fancy burn building to do what you need to do. You don't even have to have an acquired structure. If you could find one, those are the best adjunct, I think, for training. Not even for live fire, even. Just it's an actual building with carpet and walls and corners and tight doorways and closets that you can't, unless you build it right, you can't get out of a burn facility. You can go buy a bunch of pallets and build a house out of pallets for a couple $100. You can build a layout out of pallets for a couple $100. Leave it set up and leave it set up outside even for a couple of weeks. In today's environment, there's way too many resources available to do anything. There's departments that still just kind of smoke the training room, send people in air packs, crawl around the four walls and come back out. If you've searched a structure more than a few times in a working fire, the hardest thing to find is the wall, because I know what my house looks like. My wife loves furniture. I think it was it you? Yeah, it was your other half the other day where she's working on a project and furniture's in places it's not normally at.
All the time, bro.
Right?
All the time.
So I walk in and my desk is moved in 3 different places every other day of the week. So the hardest thing to find is the wall. And if we're teaching them hand on the wall, we had this conversation the other day. If we're teaching them to have their hand on the wall the entire time, which I'm rabbit hole and I'll be done in a second.
No, you're good.
But if we're teaching them to have their hand on the wall and that's their base knowledge and they get their hand off the wall, what do? Their head fucking explodes. Where am I at? Oh, that's how people get lost in bathrooms. Because you can't find a wall in a bathroom. It's cabinets, toilet, shower.
Yeah. I made that post because it's just like, okay, matter of fact, I think it was maybe even the shift before that. Try to remember. Either way, I had recently made a fire, and whenever you pop right through the front door, it really was an apartment. And we're back. No problem.
Yeah, we're back. We're good.
No, as soon as you popped open the front door, you took like literally maybe 1.5 steps in, and you run straight into the back of a couch. And in that same apartment building, I've made a fire where you forced open a door and literally had to push away like a big, almost like entertainment center away from a door, an entryway, and an access point. So it's just like I came home and like I pushed my front door open, and it's just like, what? First of all, I was like, what the hell's going on? But I was like, okay, like it just proved the point. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna send this out. But it's so true, right? Like if you were trying to search that area that I posted, and if you haven't looked at it, you can go back on the Instagram and check it. But like in front of my front door, a mini crib, I think is what they call it, and a twin size mattress for some reason in front of my front door. So if you went in there and you're trying to search, like you probably would think you were in a bedroom, honestly, and you wouldn't be able to feel a wall, because in that general area there was a crib up against one wall, like an entryway table against the other, and then a mattress up against my front door. So it just drives home the point, like I think it's important to kind of have an idea where you entered the room at, and where you are in orientation to that. But I was talking with Justin McWilliams, I think, and he made a comment about orientation in a structure fire, and I don't want to butcher it, but it's just like it's almost inexistent. Like it not that you're not oriented, but I think you need to be oriented to the space you're in, but maybe not where necessarily the wall is, if that makes sense.
There's, on that point, and this is something that I learned the hard way, there's 3 things besides being basic, there's 3 things that make you safe on the fire ground. Whenever we're talking about search and engine company work or anything like that, you have to have an absolute understanding of fire behavior and fire dynamics. You have to be able to predict what that fire's doing next, where it's headed. You have to be able to look at thermal currents, whether it's through a tick or whether you're watching velocity, density, color of smoke. You have to be competent in the base skills. Like we've already hit on them, I think 15 times, but your stretch, your throws, your drags, victim locations, everything like that. And then a strong understanding of building construction, not just general building construction, but the buildings in the area that you respond to. Us, we're in a poverty, Arkansas's impoverished state. A majority of the state is impoverished and rural. So a lot of what we're going to were 1,300 foot, shotgun shacks that are loaded down with stuff, or they're trailers, single wides and double wides, that are loaded down with stuff because, people can't afford a storage unit to keep extra stuff in, or they don't have a garage to keep extra stuff in. So not all of them are hoarder conditions necessarily, but it's tight. And there's a lot of fires where we can't even tripod. We can't even get down that low because it's too wide of a stance. So it's going back and saying that there's not one way to do things. But if we're teaching people to orient off the wall, we're setting them up for failure, right? That should be a common sense thing that we do teach. Like, hey, if you get lost, find them. Then we can figure out where we're at from there. But don't start out. We did a class recently where we had them run a search just to see where they were at, and they had it drilled so hard into their heads that they were picking the couch up and throwing it to keep their hand on the.
That was me at one point, so I get that. Like, it's just a flaw. It's a flaw in, I think when it was made aware to me, it was like, okay, literally left hand, right hand, hand on the wall, and go.
And I think it's a failure of delivery of the message, right?
That's what it is. And you just, even if that was it's not. So I don't even want to say that. But like, if you just stuck your hand on the wall and searched a house, like the main point that when I was very first new into it, is just like, you just missed the entire middle of the room that you're in. Like, you're never going to search the middle of it if you just glued to the wall the whole time. So,
and if we look at, which I geek out on stuff like this. I'm a big time nerd when it comes to everything fire service, but with everything, everything that happened with inside the family and the loss is, where are we finding people? And where does common sense say? Not even just the numbers. I'm all about the firefighter rescue survey. But if we look at our daily lives, I look at how I travel through my home, right? If I'm trying to get out of my house, I'm not going to run along the wall. I'm going to take the straight line through the middle of my living room that's wide open to the front door. And if there's a bunch of smoke, that's probably where I'm going to get knocked out. We have to look at it that way. And, going back, we do these hoarder homes and these tight and cramped homes. We're traveling the pathways. Sometimes there's paths through the stuff. We're traveling the means of egress in that point.
Yeah.
And if we run a decent amount of fires in large houses, 6, 8, 10,000 square feet. If I stay on a wall, I've searched maybe 20% of the space, and it's probably not even the areas I'm most likely to find people. And that's going to be the direct paths, the walkways that we're going to find people in.
This is probably a rabbit hole, but we look at the firefighter rescue survey pretty heavily, and obviously take those numbers like to heart and into account. But something that we've noticed, and once again, like, this is a rabbit hole, and I don't know if we're stretching too far, but if it's a geographical thing. But I think three or four of our last 7 grabs in my department have been made in bathrooms, and I think that that's like barely a statistic on the firefighter rescue survey. Like, it wasn't in any of the main topics yet. Close to, if not over 50% of the last 7 or 8 or so have been found in bathrooms with running water. So it's just like, is that a geographical thing? Is that something that we're teaching here in East Texas that's not being taught, in West Texas or in Arkansas or something like that? So like I said, that's a rabbit hole. But I also think it's important to take a look at, if you do have a data set for your department, to look and see if there's a trend there as well, instead of just looking, everywhere. So anyways, that kind of got popped into my mind when you were talking about that.
Yeah, and it's a thing. The firefighter rescue survey is a wonderful thing, something that's been needed. We were, forever, we were just recording our losses. We were just recording the death. But something that we need to look at with that, the firefighter rescue survey is a wonderful thing. We've been recording our losses for so long through NIFRs, which that's changing now too. But the rescue survey started recording our wins. And the data that went with, something that we have to keep in mind is those are general numbers from general departments from across the country. You have to portray that data in the right way. It's not the word of the Lord. I'm not, whenever we talk about it, I'm not saying if you don't search the bedroom first, you're an idiot. But take into account whenever you're doing your size up as the officer or as the backseat guy that's leading the search company, if you split crew, as based on. And I can't tell you the right or wrong way to do it at your department. I can't tell you the right and wrong way to do it in a certain fire. All we can do is give you the base knowledge and say, this is what the data shows. This is what our experience as a group of instructors says to do, because we've implemented this data and used it. and had successes with it. You can't take it as the Lord's word.
Mm-hmm.
And it's to say, take that data and say, if there's one place that I want to search first, if I don't have reports of victims, if I've got fire in the building, if there's one place that I want to search first, common sense says that we should search closest from the fire out, because least amount of time until encroached by fire to most amount of time encroached by fire, right? And then the data from the rescue survey says search bedroom by a drastic percentage. I like statistics a lot, but like I said, we can't tell you the right or wrong way to do it. It's your job. We can't tell you the right or wrong way to do it. It's your fire. But if you're not taking that data and applying it in some way, shape, or form to your operation, it's a disservice.
I actually had this conversation with one of our rookies the other day, a couple shifts ago, and we were just talking about some of the, things that he was enjoying about the job so far. And we got on to talking about search. And, I started mentioning about the firefighter rescue survey and the data and stuff like that. And I told him, and I think I saw someone post this, but going through fire academy, I was taught, and even up till, the last few years was always taught, you'll probably never touch, a victim in your entire career. And it's just now that we're recording our wins, like you said, the data is actually trending that you might actually, touch a victim within your career. And so I told him that, and he told me the same thing. That was portrayed to him in fire academy. I was like, well, the data, and we're really scraping the surface here when it comes to the firefighter rescue survey and getting everybody on board. And I hope and eventually think that it will be a standardized thing throughout the country before long. But the data is actually trending in the other direction. They're no, you probably will, or you might actually touch a victim, within your career. And he was just I feel like that kind of switched in his brain a little bit. It was man, I need to take this more seriously, which I couldn't tell you what was going through his head, but
I think I saw the article and read it yesterday or the day before. So far in 2024, for a pace compared to the last, I think they compared it to the last 3 years average. Civilian fatalities are up. Firefighter fatalities are down. I'm all glad and 100% happy that firefighter fatalities are down. But if you look at the movement that's coursing through the fire service right now, there's two sides of the aisle. One of them is the push to bring back the fact that people think that our safety should come before those that call on us. And the other side of the aisle is understanding that this job is dangerous, and there's no way that we can admin our way to a safe. Year after year after year after year, we're sitting right at about 100 line of duty deaths, right above and right below. And they're going to happen. It's a part of the job. It is the most horrible thing, and it's sad and awful. But we can't necessarily allow that to take away from the reason that we're truly right. And my wife understands it. My family understands it when that call goes out, because it's going to happen too. It was one of those things I didn't think it could happen. And one day it did. We get that call for fire with person's trapped. And when we get that call, my wife and my family understand that I love them. But right now, we're headed to that. It's time to go to work. It's time to do the job that when I signed up for it, I understood was dangerous. And because it's dangerous, instead of sitting in the front yard and whining because the building's on fire and I don't have 4 people, we did the work. We trained, we prepared, and we're ready for that. As a crew, it's not just me. It's as a crew. It's as a department. We're ready for that. We're ready for that call. And I truly think there's not really an excuse to not be at that level,
man,
because it doesn't matter. Where was it? My dad's still on the department where I started out at. They had 2 fatality fires last year. They run 200 calls a year. It doesn't distinguish. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't matter if you have 1 house in your district or 10,000. Someone lives in that house, and that house can catch on fire and they can be trapped in it. So it's just, I guess the message there is it doesn't distinguish. Fire is a ravenous beast, and it's going to consume and consume. It's up to us. We're the only ones that can put a stop to it.
Logan, I think that's going to be a good place to end it, and end the at least the serious talk for a second. If people want to get a hold of you,
man. I'll pass my phone number out to anybody that wants it. I spend a lot of time driving. I might just randomly, if you shoot me a text, there's a good chance I'll just randomly call you up and shoot the crap for a little bit. Where I'm on Facebook, send me a friend request, Instagram. The training company is too. Rural Fire Tactics on Facebook and Instagram. Phone numbers 479-214-7424. Just feel free, shoot me a text, call me. If you hate me, let me know. If you want to be friends, let me know too. It doesn't bother me either way. I'll probably talk to you anyway.
Where are you going to be at next?
That's the next one. We just got done
coming
with
up pretty
first
quickly.
in.
Anywhere else?
We had a family emergency. I had to head out of that a little early. Sorry to everybody that I was planning to hang out with. I didn't get to, but we had to head up north for a little bit. Had a family emergency there. Really winding down for the year conference wise. We'll be at for them. With Spindletop Fools and Nathan Pips and the crew there. In Beaumont and Port A. That's going to be one hell of a weekend, man. There's so many rock solid, straight up blue collar firemen just headed down to take care of that conference. We're doing a course, a free one here in Little Rock. We'll be in North Little Rock for that on October 26th. Matey's coming up to spread the good word of engine work for a weekend. Same thing kind of as the conference you got to see. It's a free deal for the volunteers. Whoever else wants to show up and play for a little bit, flow some water, talk about stretching lines and everything of that nature. Canyon Fire School, October 19th, we'll be over by Amarillo for the Canyon Annual Fire School doing cert. So
sweet, dude. You got a full plate and still technically winding down. So we'll get to see each other for them. I'm planning to be there. I got to finalize some stuff, but I should be there as well. And then I'm not really going to be anywhere else this year. After that one, I'm done. I know it. So I think this is going to be it for this one. Guys, once again, if you haven't yet, go follow Firefighter Nation on Instagram and Facebook. If you don't know who they are, they're a sibling company to Fire Engineering. It's still ran by, Fire Engineering, just with some different playmakers that are involved there. Like I said, me and Preston are going to be going live October 1st. So come hang out with us on that one. I'll definitely try to shoot out a time whenever we figure that one out. Other than that, man, enjoy your guys' week, and just remember to choose the work each and every day. We'll talk to y'all later.
sweet.